All right, welcome to 5th grade Unit 3. My name is Jake Beers, an elementary science associate here for Springdale Public Schools. We're going to go ahead and talk through this unit on the 4 spheres. So the 4 spheres of Earth, the biosphere, which is all the life, plants and animals living on the Earth, the hydrosphere, it's all of our water, the geosphere is all of our land, and then the atmosphere is our air. So it's the interaction between those 4 spheres, which is a great connection from what you just left, which is ecosystems. So matter and ecosystems, talking about how living and non-living things interact, how matter moves through those systems. Now you're going to be moving into the greater spheres, the big spheres, and how interactions between the spheres can cause changes, and how things that happen in the atmosphere can cause changes in the hydrosphere. So to do this, we first start with this exploration of what are the 4 spheres. We spend about a day on that. Then we jump into the hydrosphere. And so to do that, we read a couple books. This book's called A Cool Drink of Water. It really is just a picture of just water in the world. It's just a really short read aloud, just a cool way to show kids different ways that water is found and how people work to get drinks of water. It's a great, fun story just to explore the idea of water. We also look at where we find water on the Earth. So we look at maps. We do a simple investigation with a 1 liter bottle where we take drops out and measure out amounts to determine how much fresh water and how much salt water is on our planet, and what percentage of that is frozen. So kids learn that like 97% of our water is all salt water, and most of that's found in our oceans. And so there's this idea of conservation of water and how it's important. We then go into this within that lesson, we do more some tracking of water use. How much water are we using at home and at school? We read this parts of this book called Down the Drain, where we learn about where our water goes, water treatment. It's a great time to tie in Beaver Lake. You know, Beaver Lake's our water source here in Northwest Arkansas, and talking about how they're protecting the watershed. And it's a great connection for guest speakers there to talk about our water. And then we end with kind of a water pledge campaign where kids are looking at how can we work to protect our water here in Northwest Arkansas. We then dive into the deeper into the spheres, and we begin to identify the spheres through picture sorts in a short little research project where kids are looking at a specific region of the world and then identifying what does the water look like there. So for example, in the tundra, a lot of the water may be frozen in snow and ice, so a lot of the hydrosphere is locked in that frozen ice compared to the rainforest where a lot of it's going to be rain or the ocean. So they do a short little 1-day research project and then share that out with their groups. We then look at way the spheres interact. We do this little read aloud from the Globe project called All About Earth. It's a digital read aloud, and also every school has a spiral bound copy of it. But it's a simple read aloud, but it really explores the interactions between the spheres, and kids are reminded about what are where the biosphere comes in, hydrosphere, and how they begin to interact and depend upon one another. So after learning about the spheres, diving into the spheres, talking about water, we then begin to talk about what happens when an issue is introduced in one of our spheres. So we read we do the picture perfect lesson called Oil Spill, where we read the book Prince William, learn about the oil spill that happened in Prince William Sound, and then kids begin to plan how can they work to clean up an oil spill. So they read the book Oil Spill, and then they begin to do an oil spill investigation. And so to do that, kids are given tons of different materials, and they can try them out, like pantyhose materials, pipe cleaners, cotton balls, pipettes, rubber bands, coffee filters, and then they build their little ocean habitat. There's this black oil-based food coloring you mix up, and you pour that into the water, and then kids work to collect different amounts of oil from the oil spill. So this is a little bit of a messy day. I would cover the tables with paper. I'd really set some clear expectations when you're doing this activity about, man, we're not going to make a mess. We're going to talk about really being scientific about our work, and then kids trying to determine which of these materials work best to clean up the oil spill. And then on the days to follow, they explore what happened in that area with an oil spill. How did that oil spill in the water, in the hydrosphere, affect the biosphere, the life there on land and in the water? How did it affect the geosphere with all that water, oil spill there? So they look at tons of different videos. They look at some things that people did to help clean up the oil spills, and they learn about how those spheres interact and how those changes in one sphere can affect the other. And then the last thing we do is we begin to look at plastic and where plastic, how plastic affects our environment. It's a huge issue that we're dealing with right now environmentally. And so to launch into that, we read the book called One Plastic Bag, which is a story about these women in Gambia who took plastic trash and began to weave these plastic bags to create upcycled crafts. And so they explore this book. This is also one of the Arkansas Diamond books this year, so it's a great connection to the literacy standards. And so after that, they look for plastic around, and they begin to realize that so much of our world is made of plastic, right? So cups or bottles or anything, I mean everything, even this tabletop made of plastic. So begin to look at plastic, how plastic affects us, and then the plastic pollution problem. And then from there, they do a little bit of work on upcycled crafts. So there's this book called Recycled Crafts. And so kids get ideas of how they can take recycled materials and make crafts out of them. So there's just tons of different ideas in the web. Pinterest is a great place to look for those as well. And so there's so many options. So having kids bring in materials from home, find materials around the school, but then they try and create an upcycled craft, or whether it's a jump rope from paper bags, something that they can give or sell to somebody, something to create something out of this trash. So there's great ideas in these books as well. And then the end of the unit is a ACT inspired assessment, and just they kind of wrap up the students' thinking. So remember, this is all about spheres, how spheres interact, and how one sphere and something that happens in one sphere can affect the other spheres, and how, as Earth, we're all interconnected. And then how can we protect our planet by being conscious when environmental issues happen through oil spills, and then by reducing the amount of plastic we have, and making choices to create something out of that waste. So I hope your students enjoy this. I'm excited to see the kind of things that they'll create, and I know you are too.